Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Chief Secretary addresses the media.
Next Thursday, we are going to be discussing the Tobago budget. And as you all are aware, we would have presented, or we would have had a budget debate in June of this year, as per the Tobago House of Assembly Act, which mandates us not only to have a budget, but to have it passed, and of course the information passed on to the Minister of Finance, who will then use that as a basis for discussions which we have, and that would lead to our allocation. As you'd also be aware, our allocation in this year's budget, although it was more generous than at any other time with respect to the quantum, was much less, especially in the development section, much less than we would have requested. In fact, under the development, I think we'd have got less than 20% of what was requested. That notwithstanding, the Tobago House of Assembly has a responsibility to ensure that with the resources that it has available, that it does all that is necessary to ensure that it utilizes the money most efficiently and most effectively. But we got to be realistic in that there are things that we will not be able to do. And therefore, we need to go to the people of Tobago and let them know what we can do, and by inference, what we cannot do. And of course, be able to set out a timetable as to the quality of the delivery and the timing of the delivery. So yesterday and last Wednesday, we would have had sessions involving the secretaries, the assistant secretaries, the administrators, and the accounts people, because we recognize that delivery has to be a process involving all the major players. And we were able to have all-day discussions, and after these discussions, we were able to make decisions as to what the deliverables would be and to bring a certain degree of predictability to the process. So I am fairly confident that when secretaries and assistant secretaries go to the House on Thursday and they make a pledge or a promise or indicate to the people of Tobago that they are going to be delivering on this project or this program, that the resources, they will be doing that knowing that the resources will be available, and therefore knowing that they have a good chance of delivery. But I just want to reiterate that there are a number of projects and programs which would have been mentioned in our June presentation which cannot be delivered because of the shortcoming and because of the challenges with the resources. We are, however, in discussion with the central government, and there are about 3 or 4 projects which the central government has agreed should be given priority, and that list, of course, does not include those projects which are specifically under the responsibility of ministries at the central government level, where those projects come under the Schedule 6. I speak, for example, about the police stations, the completion of the Met station. Those are projects under the central government because they fall under the 6th schedule. But there are projects in Tobago which the government has accepted should be given priority, and including among them would be the terminal, the construction of the terminal building at the Arthur N. I. Robinson Airport, and the desilting of the Hillsborough Dam. Those 2 projects are among the projects which have been identified as sufficiently urgent and important that the central government would be involved in ensuring that a process is found to have them delivered to the people of Tobago. The next, it's Tobago Day. Now, as you know, this year we are having our celebrations, normal December the 4th, which we normally call Assembly Day, but we want to expand it into into Tobago Day. And of course, the rationale behind that is to let the people of Tobago recognize that this transcends this institution called the Assembly, and it is a day where all Tobagonians, and whether they're living in Tobago, in Trinidad, in the region, or right throughout the diaspora, have an opportunity to really savor and celebrate their Tobago-ness. And I think we have a proud tradition, and I think that it is something that we should celebrate. Obviously, during this transition period, many elements of the Assembly Day celebration would be maintained, and we don't expect to have a total disconnect, so that our celebrations in 2015 bear certain similarities to the Assembly Day celebrations of 2014. We have a schedule here, which I will make available and make copies available to you when you go across. But I just want to highlight some of the major activities. We are a religious society, and therefore, with the celebration being on Friday, the 4th of December, we are asking that schools, churches, and organizations, churches, mosques, temples, organizations, offer special prayers on behalf of the Assembly between Sunday the 29th of November and Sunday the 6th of December. And then on Wednesday the 2nd of December at 9:30 in the morning, we'll have a praise and worship session at the Shaw Park complex. The public is invited, and we expect to have a large gathering there, and we expect that the praise and worship will be representative of the various denominations and religions, representative of the various age groups and even localities, so that we have something to which all sectors of the Tobago population could relate. And then immediately following that, there'll be the viewing of the Tobago Day exhibition, where the different divisions of the Assembly would be have their displays. This year we want to focus not on giveaways, but focus on highlighting exactly what the divisions would have achieved and what the divisions what their vision is and so on, and how they can, in fact, how they are impacting on delivering and developing Tobago. And then that exhibition, the viewing continues on Thursday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then, of course, the tree lighting ceremony, to which, most of Tobago look forward to. The Botanic Station tree lighting is going to take place at 6 in the evening. That's on Thursday the 3rd. And then we expect that there are going to be special sessions for the students on Friday the 4th. And the Chief Secretary's Awards function will be at 7 on Friday the 4th, 7 p.m. at the Shaw Park complex. And then the Roxborough the Louis D'Or tree lighting ceremony will take place on the 5th of December at 6 p.m. So those are the major activities. There are going to be some activities that are carded for after. One of the activities on which we now engage is a THA booklet, a booklet that highlights aspects of the Tobago House of Assembly, of Tobago's history, of Tobago's culture, so that we'll be in a position where in one document you can have information on Tobago and the Tobago House of Assembly. We realize that as we try to plan an essay competition for the schools and debates and so on among youth groups, that there was no one document to which individuals can relate and individuals can go to get the relevant information. We are also supportive of the concept that the history of Tobago and the history of Trinidad and Tobago should be highlighted, and we believe that this booklet would in fact assist in helping us to disseminate disseminate the relevant information. So there are going to be activities after the 4th of December as we try to inculcate in Tobagonians an even greater pride in their Tobago-ness, in their culture, and in their history. I just want to ask the press to maybe just give a brief, well, it's Thursday, but the Chief Secretary's Awards, I think we're going to be making, I think the committee is going to be meeting sometime tomorrow, but I think up to tomorrow morning, if there are any nominations, I'm certain that they would be considered. The Chief Secretary Awards, as you know, is awards given to Tobagonians for outstanding contributions, services, whatever, during the calendar year. So that, and it is open to anybody. Individuals can make nominations, groups can make nominations, but it must get to the committee before the committee meets sometime during the course of the day tomorrow. All right, so that's the situation with Tobago Day. Now, one of the pieces of information which I'm particularly heartened is the question of the appointment of Tobago House of Assembly representatives to national boards and committees. As you might be aware, over the past 5 years, I have been complaining about what I consider to be a deliberate effort on the part of the central government to prevent the Tobago House of Assembly from having what I would consider adequate representation on boards and committees. In fact, the position of the previous government is that the Tobago House of Assembly would only be represented on committees and boards where its presence was mandated by law. It meant, therefore, that we would have been represented, I think, is on a total of 6 committees, on 6 boards. And I'm very happy to indicate that to date, the Tobago House of Assembly is now represented on 28 boards. Of the boards that have been appointed so far, the Tobago House of Assembly has representation on 28 boards. That is distinct from Tobagonians being represented. And these boards were selected after consultation between the Assembly and the central government. We did not request or demand representation on all boards, but we felt that there are certain boards which were so important and their decisions would impact so significantly on Tobago that we should have THE representation. And I say THE representation because these are boards on which, when the decisions are made, there should be synergy between what is happening at the board level and what is happening in the Tobago House of Assembly, so that the THE representative could be a conduit between the Assembly and the particular board, that they take information and they bring information and they're able, of course, to make the Tobago case to the board, and in some cases, make the board's case to the Assembly. What we had over the past 5 years, that the only time that you were able to really have any quality communication between the Assembly and the boards was when the board members came to Tobago, and that would normally be like once a year. The only board where we would have had regular meetings, I would say, would have been the WASA board, which, met with us fairly regularly. But all the other boards is normally maybe once, twice a year, and that didn't lead to any meaningful communication. So that situation has improved, and there are quite a number of other boards on which we feel that the Tobago House of Assembly's request for representation would be honored. The CDP Symposium, I see one of your representatives here, Mr. Hector. He was also there. But we went to the CDP Symposium, and I was quite I was quite impressed by what I've heard. I was only there for the session before the break. But I was impressed by the quality of the presentations. It continues tomorrow, and I'm hoping that, you know, there was a good turnout, and I'm hoping there'll be even a better turnout tomorrow, where among the presentations and the issues to be discussed would be perspective for the establishment and maintenance of safe borders and clean, green, safe and serene communities and industries. And then health and wellness in a clean, green, safe and serene Tobago. Industrialization, attracting and developing clean, green, safe and serene businesses. The case for industrialization based on gas and other sensitive commodities. And we have people like Professor Julian, we have Mr. Curtis Mohammed, Mr. Bernard Mitchell from EIDCOT. And then in the health and wellness, we have Ms. Patricia Toppin, Dr. Agbeko, Meleka Abeko, she is among them, and a number of persons, including Assistant Superintendent Roberts, Lieutenant Commander Jean Baptiste, and then again we have the compliant document. So basically what I'm saying is that there are a number of issues here that are important to all Tobagonians, all sectors, and I'm inviting members of the press, along with, of course, the general public, to participate in what I think would be a very fulfilling exercise. As I made the point this morning, the CDP, this whole event and this process is what I spoke about this morning as persistent planning and progressive people. But I think the point I tried to emphasize, and I think this point was emphasized by a number of the other presenters, is that there can be no success except there's people participation, there's people involvement, the people have to actually take control and take ownership of the process. And that is the only way that the comprehensive development, economic development plan can be delivered and have the relevant impact on the people of Tobago. So that is something that I really want to reiterate my invitation. Over the last couple weeks, there have been concerns raised by some people with respect to the response of the Tobago House of Assembly to disaster. That heavy weather event which took place a couple of months ago, October the 7th to be exact. Well, I want to make maybe 3 points. One, disaster relief. And disaster relief is really how we respond to bring immediate relief to persons suffering from disaster. The second aspect is restoration. And restoration, by definition, takes time, and it cannot be complete restoration. And the third aspect is mitigation. Now, what TEMA normally does when there is a disaster is to first deal with immediate relief. So a roof blows off, they put on a tarpaulin or whatever. The Division of Health and Social Services, especially the Social Services Division would ensure that you get food and, in some cases, accommodation and so on, but that is temporary. And then you have to do an evaluation. And that evaluation is done jointly among TEMA, the Division of Infrastructure, and the Division of Health and Social Services, the Social Services Department to be specific, under the supervision of the Office of the Chief Secretary, or the Office of the Chief Administrator, I should say, under whose jurisdiction disaster management falls. And that is sometimes a very laborious process. Because remember, you've got to go out there, you've got to evaluate, you've got to look at the status of the state of the building, the status of the people, in other words, the position of the people, those who have the means to assist themselves, those who don't have the means to assist themselves. Then, of course, the assembly's capability, because sometimes, depending on the extent of the damage, the assembly just simply does not have the resources to restore fully. And therefore, we would have done this, and I have a report, and based on that report, taking into consideration all the circumstances, a level of relief will be brought to those that are considered to be deserving, and those, of course, where the assembly has the resources to treat with it. The recommendation here is to provide material to the tune of $219,830. And I understand that the recommendations have been made, and at least 10 persons should be receiving assistance, or the checks are being awaited from the accounts division, so all the paperwork should have been done. The others are being reviewed, and of course the paperwork is to be done there. I must indicate, based on this report, that there are houses which are deemed unfit for repairs and need complete reconstruction. The challenge here, and I want to say this very clearly, the challenge here is that most of these houses were destroyed because they were poorly constructed or in a poor state of repair. So they were in a state of extreme disrepair. So we have to make a judgment call as to how we intervene, because we cannot function as an insurance company, because in some cases many of these houses were uninsurable. So that we are going to have a policy, and most likely that policy will limit the amount of assistance that the Tobago House of Assembly would give regardless of the circumstances. It would be enough assistance to provide the person with some kind of start, but the Tobago House of Assembly would be very hard-pressed to be placed in a situation where it has to reconstruct homes as if it were an insurance company. Basically, if you do that and you have a major event, you can understand what they think, because there are some events where the total reconstruction cost goes into billions of dollars. And I don't know any jurisdiction in the world that really guarantees that. Most jurisdictions, you will have set policies, set guidelines, set ceilings, and people will know that beforehand. So that the various agencies are working on that, and I would suspect that by the end of this year we will have a document which lays out exactly what are the parameters within which the Assembly could provide assistance. But the Assembly is committed to encouraging and assisting people with mitigation, because when we did the evaluation, a number of the buildings were damaged because of the condition in which those buildings were, either because of their age, their state of disrepair, or the way in which the buildings were constructed. So that the Division of Settlement is now going to introduce a disaster mitigation program where incentives are going to be given to householders who intend to engage in the kind of programs and the kind of construction that would make it a little bit more difficult, or let me put it differently, would make them a little bit less prone to damage in cases of disaster. whether you're talking about hurricane straps, whether you're talking about guttering, whether you're talking about, drainage, the sewer system. All of these things contribute to disaster during difficult times, and therefore the mitigation program would provide assistance to people who wish to get involved in this exercise. The final thing I want to talk about has to do with an issue that has been in the public domain for some time. As you're aware, concerns have been raised and threats have been given with respect to leave of absence granted by the Assembly to Assemblyman Sandy. The impression has been given, one, that it is illegal, and two, that there is collusion. The way this administration operates and the way I operate is that I don't get involved in fluff and I don't get involved in old talk. If something is right, there's a way to prove that it is right. If something is wrong, there's a way to prove that it is wrong. And I don't make myself out to be an expert in the areas where I am not expert. And therefore, in matters of law, I go to the people who are experts on law. So what we'll have done is that we'll have asked for an opinion from a senior counsel with respect to the concerns that were raised. And we did receive the opinion. The proper interpretation of Section 19(1) of the THA Act, right, which states, the seat of an assemblyman becomes vacant when he dies, B, submits a written resignation to the presiding officer, or in the case of the presiding officer where he submits a written resignation to the president or his appointment as presiding officer is revoked in accordance with subsection 2. Is without the leave of the assembly continuously absent from Tobago for more than 90 days or from 3 consecutive ordinary meetings of the assembly. Ceases to possess any of the qualification required by section 15(1) or becomes disqualified from being a member for any of the reasons set out in section 15(2). And I just want to read the conclusion. With respect to the first issue, I advise that the Roxborough Bellegarde East seat held by Assemblyman Sandy has not been vacated by virtue of his leave of absence from the Assembly meeting since 2013, as his leave was authorized by the Assembly in accordance with Section 19 of the THA Act. I also advise that neither his medical condition nor his recent marital difficulties are matters which render him physically and or mentally unfit to fulfill his duties as an assemblyman, as there is no evidence, medical or otherwise, to support any such findings. Now, of course, this is an opinion of a senior counsel, which can be taken to court. I really doesn't preempt the matter being taken before the court of law. But I'm saying that as a public body, we are advised by the opinions of those whose job it is to give those opinions. So that until, the court of law rules otherwise, this is the opinion or this is the position of the Tobago House of Assembly with respect to this issue.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending 21st November 2015.